Here at SME TV, we know that every business has a story to tell, and if we're lucky, we get to help tell it. This week's business hero, Conexie, is a newly launched startup app that started as a tool for people to report problems, ask questions, and solve problems, typically in buildings. But the exciting thing they've done is bring in the capability to connect devices and bring the data to life. Today, we're joined by one of the co-founders of Conexie, Jake Hannan, and he shares their story. Seth Godin said, "There's no shortage of remarkable ideas. What's missing is the will to execute them." Welcome, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
Now, it's very exciting because I know that Conexie is a platform that's quite intense, is my first impression when I tried to pull it all apart. So tell me, first of all, what is Conexie? And then let's look at what problem did you see that Conexie could fill or solve?
Yeah, definitely. So how we try to explain it is Conexie is a platform designed and optimized for groups of people who share a common interest but aren't on a platform or a common platform. So using Conexie, you could ask questions, solve problems, and share important information, not only from people to people, but from devices to people as well.
Why was the device issue a problem?
Right. So, there's so many things going on in a building, whether it's energy, water consumption, that people just aren't looking at. So when people share information, it's pretty straightforward because you know who you kind of want to send it to. But with devices, there needs to be something that can pull that data and put it in a presentable
compatible
way. Exactly.
Right. Because we always whinge about, oh, I'm on a Mac and you're on a Windows, and you can't share sometimes.
Yep.
Typically, you can't share. So was that a challenge where different platforms couldn't share with different devices and different people? So you're the common thread?
Yeah, exactly. And there's so many things that people use today, like email, WhatsApp group, Facebook groups, and these are all great. But the thing is, they're usually not designed for what people are trying to use them for. And you might have a problem and want to call someone or want to message somebody, but you might not even know who that person is or know if they even got that message or opened it.
So you don't need to necessarily know the person, you just know that you need to report something or communicate something, and Conexie works out where it has to go.
Correct. So we like to call that comms plus. So you can put all this information into a platform, but then you got to know who it needs to go to. So using Conexie, depending on what the problem is or what you're trying to find out, we're able to find out who the key person that you need to speak to and group them all together.
So is that where you saw the problem initially? Because I mean, the startup golden rule is, identify a problem, therefore fix it, and that's where the startup is born.
Yeah, so we kind of found a problem through our background, which we could talk a little bit about later, but the main thing is we all lived in buildings ourselves, right? Strata buildings, we were in school and universities, and you'd have a problem and you'd try and send it to somebody and it would never get fixed, and you wouldn't even know if somebody got the message and actioned it. So that was our main driving force, was to build something to where people didn't have to be frustrated with all these things going on, and kind of see a live feed of what's happening as well, so you're not doubling up on things.
Now, if we look at the founders, there's three of you.
Yeah.
Is it true that two of them are firefighters?
Yeah, correct. Two of them are firefighters, and that kind of gave us a bit of difficulty in the last 3 months of 2019, kind of cut 75% of our team away. So
because of what was happening in Australia.
Exactly.
And now, they're firefighters, right? What do they know about a startup business?
Yeah, so what it kind of comes down to is kind of what seeded this idea as well, was firefighters see the downfall of poor communication almost every single day, right? The only difference with them in a business is for them, poor communication could be the difference of life or death in some cases. So what we set out to do is create a proactive tool, so not only finding reactive solutions, and so we were able to take a lot of their knowledge just on acting quick and making decisions and kind of put that into the software, and kind of running a business to us was just kind of something that we learned as we went along.
As you go along. Well,
exactly.
you can't know everything up front, because then it wouldn't be a startup. You'd be. So let's talk about them. They're not here, so we can talk about them. Who are they?
Yeah, so there's three of us. Sebastian Jacobs, who has a background in, he created a cool device, a hose pack for firefighters as well.
Life-saving device?
Yeah, correct. And he was able to exit that company. So he kind of had some knowledge on how to start a company, all of the logistics behind it, and how to exit that as well. And out of the three of us, he's more of the project management technical side, which is big because Matt and I don't have those skills.
Nice way of putting it.
Yeah.
He can do that.
Yeah, he can do kind of the less fun things, or it's fun for him. So, And then Matt has, besides being a firefighter, a background of that, he has experience implementing a large ERP system for a pharmaceutical company across Asia. So that was a lot of, finding ways to streamline processes and then figuring out how to connect people really well in that. And then myself, I have background in a digital workflow optimization. And similar to Matt, that's going into businesses, finding usually paper-based and old school processes that they do, try and streamline that and just make it all a lot lot
Where did you all meet? Because you're not the firefighter.
No, I'm not.
So did they rescue you
I'm the
from
one civilian of the company.
Well, but did they rescue you from a burning building and then you had a drink and then you got together, or is someone a brother, or?
Nah, funny enough, me and Matt were living in Cronulla and we actually met at a pub one day.
Out
Northies,
south.
actually.
Yeah. Hey, I spent my wild youth at Northies.
Yeah, we had some fun times. So we're having a few drinks, and him and Seb were working on this product, and they saw that I had some background that was kind of a missing piece as well, the sales side to them. So I think we're all kind of like to take risks, so we thought, why not? Let's give this a crack, the three of us.
It's a real Australian bloke thing, though, to sort of get together like that over a drink and go, oh yeah, you seem all right, you might know a bit. Well, you can come into the fold.
Yeah.
So how long has this trio been working together now?
Yeah, so we've been working together for about 2.5 years.
So you know each other reasonably well now?
Yeah, we do. So me and Matt met that initial time about 4 years ago, and then he introduced me to Seb, and that's when we all started working together.
So we know that the other two boys are firefighters, so we get their background. You've got a sales background.
Yeah.
And they've nominated you to be the spokesperson for Conexie today.
Yeah.
So tell me about your sales background, because you haven't been around that long. I know that.
Yeah.
You being as young as you are.
Yeah.
So where did you get your sales background?
Yeah, my dad had a software company back in the US, and after leaving school, there was an opportunity to kind of help out with the sales team there. So we were selling into enterprise, so kind of being able to work with a bunch of decision makers and figuring out the best way to implement our solution across the company. That kind of led to a software sales role in Australia. So I moved down here about 4 years ago, just before I met Matt, and it was the same kind of thing, working with big enterprises. And what really tied that into Conexie was the whole going into a big company, they might not even know they have a problem, and try and figure out a way to streamline these processes. But the key thing is doing it without removing anybody, right? So making sure everybody has a key part in that new process and not let anyone have a fear of, hey, my job might get removed from this piece of technology. So we're really all about enhancing people's jobs and giving them the tools that they need to succeed as well. So that kind of fit in with what we were doing here. And and
going from there. So now that I've jumped there, let's go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that you've got a typical person using, or a building using Conexie. What is their experience of this?
Right. So with Conexie,
Give me a typical day, a typical week in the life of Conexie being implemented.
Yeah, definitely. So if you live in an apartment, let's say in the CBD, if you have Conexie, we try to make it super simple, because if it's not simple, people aren't going to use it. So to deploy it, you could either scan a barcode and it brings you to a web page, or if you have the app downloaded, it'll automatically populate you into your building, or channel as we call it. And so using Conexie, if you have a problem, let's say your sink, you have a leaky faucet, you could report that problem through Conexie, and based off what you pick and what photos you take of it, we're able to identify immediately that it's a problem with the water, connect you to the building manager, also a plumber if they have one that works with the building, and we could instantly group you into a WhatsApp-like environment so that you could quickly chat. They could say, hey, are you going to be home at 4 p.m. today? I'll be there. So just kind of quickly minimize the back and forth phone calls, paper-based things as well.
Right. So I have a problem. I'm one of the users, the residents.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I've got a leaky faucet, or there's something wrong. That process happens. And then what you're talking about is streamlining the whole, I don't have to get on the phone,
Exactly.
Where is this person? All these things, I can manage it not even being home.
Exactly. So the main thing was, like I said earlier, you might not even know who you need to contact to fix the problem.
No.
And sometimes these things get fixed, you just don't know that they do. And then so you keep chasing up the building manager or the plumber to see if it happens. So with Conexie, everything's transparent. You could see that they've received it, that they opened it, that they're working on it. And then once the job's done, you can have everyone confirm, even by photo, and then keep that for auditing purposes.
So it's then closed.
Yeah, and that way the owner can't come back and say, hey, you didn't do this properly, or everything is audited and you can see that it was done.
And from the owner's perspective, or the strata or the strata manager, what's the advantage there for them? Because we've touched briefly on savings that buildings can experience, but How would they see that advantage?
Yeah, so for them, we're trying to make their lives easier, right? A lot of people get frustrated with building managers and strata managers because they're dealing with so many things at once. So what we want to do is make their lives easier and stop them from getting phone calls at night and, just people, ringing them up really angry. And also, hopefully saving...
I'm sure they'd be very excited about that, because there is a lot of angst and anger floating around when there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And then at the end of the day, too, we want to streamline their processes. So if there's 3 or 4 different plumbing issues or electrical issues, we try and allocate those to one electrician or one tradesman so that they don't have people coming back on site to fix things that are already done. And also, if I see a problem and then you go to report that same problem later that day, we could see that it's already been reported and you could get appended onto my submission as well. So it stops double handling.
Right, so they're made aware of things.
Correct.
So how does the data or savings come through for the building owners or the strata managers in terms of usages like power, etc.? Are they able to integrate monitoring systems?
Yeah. So that's a really cool other side of our product that we've launched about 6 months ago, and really pushing it is bringing in that information. So, for example, if there's a faucet running or a leak somewhere in a water system, or even someone's left the light on somewhere for days, we're able to pick up that anomaly in that data and put it to someone who could action and stop it, rather than them waiting for the next bill cycle to see that they've been wasting a lot of money and resources. So we bring all that information real time. And the thing is, all this data and information is already in buildings and everywhere now. It's just, if it's not put into the hands of somebody who can use it and in a format that they could actually understand what they're reading, it's pretty useless.
So, I mean, you mentioned power, and I know we talked about this offline, is that often you could have a leak of some kind, whether it's water or power, and you see a spike in usage.
Correct.
But by the time anyone's apprised of it, in the next billing cycle, it can be 180 days, from one to the other, to actually see that there's something different going on. And, by the time anyone does something, it's 6 or 7 months.
Exactly.
And you've already wasted money because you've been paying for something that shouldn't have happened. So this is where some of these anomalies can get picked up early.
Definitely.
To be actioned and changed or fixed, and then saving money in the long term.
Correct. So we could set in parameters about what they think their usage should be, but then we also have preset things in there too, like what a refrigerator should be running at and typical things like that. So if we do see a spike, we're able to let them know real time right away so they could go solve that. So
you'd make an assessment, again, if we're talking about a building, you'd make an assessment knowing that a building like that has 2 lifts that should be running with this kind of power.
Correct.
So there's parameters, as you said, that you can set of average, normal.
Yeah, and so we could either go in and set those parameters on the spot, or utilizing existing customers that we have, we could kind of look at the same size building and how many lifts they have and use past data, which is really cool.
So you've got a platform, Conexie, you've been endeavouring to make sure that it's easy to use for the user. If we look at the resident or the tenant being the first line of defence that plugs in that way. There's also the ability for the building to streamline their operations when they can, put all their services, all the electrical, look, there's 4 different things happening on that day, let's all manage that this way, not 4 different electricians, let's bring one.
Yeah.
That's one service call, and then you've also got the fact that they at the management level, they can, when they're plugged in, they can look at what's happening.
Definitely.
And chart that and end up saving the strata.
Yeah.
And therefore everyone money.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we look at that. Back to you being a startup. Was funding an issue to get this off the ground?
So surprisingly, when we initially started, it wasn't. We set out to just kind of bootstrap this and kind of, we were serious about it, but we're working our jobs, and it was kind of a side project. And then after we started kind of putting our wireframes together and really putting a business plan together, we found a few investors that were willing to give us enough money to kind of get to an MVP stage. So we were really, really lucky and fortunate from that part.
Okay, you call yourself lucky. I think it was just the hard work and the planning around it. We'll say that you're the glue that brought the firefighters together, right, and executed it all. That's the way it stands. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's great. It's been a lot of fun. With startups, the ups and downs, a lot of rejection. You go from having the best day of your life to 1 hour later, the worst day of your life. So, but yeah, it's been a ton of fun, and it hasn't been easy, but, working with, we've all become really good friends throughout the process, and being able to do that every day is awesome.
Nothing like the pain of business to bring people together, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So that when you can sit down and have a beer at the end of the day, you're shaking your head going, man, it was tough.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's a shared thing.
Yeah.
It's that kind of community that brings people together.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
To everybody watching us, we appreciate that. And of course, to the Piedmont Studio, thank you so much for making us look and sound good. If you haven't already subscribed to our YouTube channel, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's a button. Press subscribe. Now, to the SMEA Association, for your help and support of us, thank you so much. If you have any comments, tips, tricks, or questions, you can email them straight to me. news@smea.org.au. We're across all the socials. I'm Angela Vithulkis. You've been watching SME TV. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time.